Okay. Oh, goodness heavens, there's, today the mics work. No, just have one person to hear me, but the mics are working. Hopefully there are people at home. Okay, I'm going to call this evening's special meeting to order at 6:33 p.m., beginning with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. Any questions or comments or discussion with regard to this evening's agenda or changes that anyone needs to make? Okay. And I don't believe there were any. Oh, there was a change. There was an addition today, wasn't there, Serena? Yes. So it's that as the 5.01, if I'm not mistaken, was added within the last 24 hours. So we'll just call everyone's attention to that. And otherwise, I will move to the resolution for our agenda. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education approves the agenda for the special meeting with executive session today, July 21st, 2026. May I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Francis. A second? Thank you, Craig. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Next up is our public comment. Do we have anyone that had indicated they wanted to speak? Okay. I could have just asked you. I didn't want to put you on the spot. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item. So our next item is to accept an instructional resignation. Be it resolved, based on the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education accepts the following instructional personnel resignation of Danielle Schneibel, Director of Special Education. May I have a motion? Thank you, Ray. A second? Thank you, Craig. Comments, questions, tears?
Just that it's been, since that position's been broken out and created, she's really owned it and really built up our special education program into a top-tiered situation, and she'll be profoundly missed. And I look forward to, well, not look forward to, I guess we need to figure out how to move forward. That's where we're at.
Yeah, I'd like to comment as well. I think that her dedication has been unfounded. I also think that she had created a new frontier in terms of the next position. Very much had addressed a lot of those things on her own, and she will be sorely missed. I do wish the next person luck to fill her shoes.
I reached out to Ms. Schneibel just to say congratulations and good luck. And she seems like an amazing person. I got to know her a little bit over the phone, as well as I remember her from Andrew going through school. So I wish her nothing but the best of luck. I'm sure she'll do amazing where she's going. So it's a sad day for Duanesburg, but a great day. Hopefully we can find somebody to replace her.
Danielle, this is a horrendous loss for us, a horrendous loss. And I don't know that her shoes can be filled because she was an encyclopedia of special ed. And it's not going to, I'm very sad about losing her.
And I agree. I will end by if Mrs. Schneibel, you're watching out there in the interwebs, we do wish you the very, very best. Wherever you are headed next is very, very lucky to have you. So we will miss you in a big way. Okay, if there are no other comments or questions, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. On that note, we need to talk about how we'd like to move forward with filling this role and potentially restructuring the role, right, Kim, to
don't know if I'm-
meet our needs more effectively and to ensure that we are getting our money's worth from our
Okay.
person, right?
Right. So I
Okay,
composed some notes, and I just want to echo the sentiments of the board. You know, Danielle had come to me a while back, and you know, we've had so many honest and conversations in the last few years. And you know, she had expressed that her professional journey, right? And what's the next step? And what's the next challenge? And you know, the difference between a district like Duanesburg versus a larger school district, and what is that role? And it can be exciting. It's definitely different. You know, as many of you know, I was director of special education and pupil personnel in a very large district with 660 identified kids. So I think that as she looks in her last decade in her career, she was ready for that challenge, and we all know, right? She is top notch. I've said this for years that all the special ed directors I've worked with, including myself, she is the best of the best. And we are so excited for her to take this next step in her professional journey. I've reached out to the department per se, like the teachers and related service providers, and asked them, we're going to come together in the next week or so, probably cry a little, and then figure out how we move forward. And you know, to kind of echo what Ray had said, this is a new frontier. And so she does leave behind a strong legacy. It's a reflection of who the systems, relationship, and care she has built over the last several years as a teacher and as a leader. But I think it's really important, and I think the board, you know, has echoed this as well, that we need to be intentional, not rush the process, and find the right person to continue and strengthen the foundation, as well as support us moving forward. I do have a few emails out with some potential interims. I'm being picky because I'd like someone with a special ed background. I know that if it ends up being somebody part-time, I can fill that void as well because I have years of experience doing it. But I clearly already work 12, 14 hours a day. To add that to my platter, it probably will be impossible to do. But I'm happy to support because some of the retirees are saying, I only want to work 2 or 3 days a week. So kind of going through the list that I got from BOCES and then some recommendations. Hopefully by the August meeting, I'll have a recommendation for you guys. Looking to not rush the process, right? And having an interim for a few months. I had said to Danielle that in all of our very honest conversations about what the future should look like and what are the needs as the needs of the district are growing. We have an increase of students with who are identified or classified with IEPs. We have an increase with students who have 504s. We have an increase since COVID of social emotional learning. We have an increase, especially at our primary level. We know it's not unique to Duanesburg. There's a wave of children coming in post-COVID that are demonstrating significant challenges and academic and social emotionally. We also know if we look and we keep kids at the center of our decision making, is that we are looking at a dramatic change within New York State education, within New York State Inspires and Portrait of a Graduate. That is at the forefront. The Board of Regents back in June gave more guidance. And we know that's going to be the heavy lift over the next few years. What does that look like? So, you know, even though we're all incredibly sad about Danielle leaving, I think we can try and find the silver lining and look for a candidate who can help support both the curriculum side of New York Inspires / Portrait of a Graduate and our student support needs. And that is an umbrella that a lot of districts, unless you're very small, like less than 200, every size district has that umbrella. So for example, you have the umbrella on Jeff's side of the house that is transportation, buildings and grounds, food service. Then you have the other umbrella that is your special ed teachers, your paraprofessionals, your English as a new language, your school counselors, your social workers, your speech pathologists. They also oversee the multi-tier systems of support, or used to be called RTI. They also oversee some designs or structures have where they're in charge of, they're the main curriculum instructional leader in the sense of when it comes to resources, vetting resources, and or that continuum of standards from K-12. So I'd like the board to have an open discussion about what, based on what we need and what we know, and how can we design a leadership position that encompasses all the things and that really creates that umbrella and that department leader that is more of a district level than necessarily just special education. Looking around at districts similar to our size, I went similar to our size, we know that the market value is anywheres, and we can talk about this in an executive session, the market value is running anywheres from 105 to 140. That's eliminating people who've been doing the position for 20 years, right? Those are outliers. So just to keep that in mind. And so if that's the market value to have the best of the best come to Duanesburg, what do we want this to be? And I know it's a concern about, that's a huge leap in what we budgeted, but Mr. Rivenberg and I talked about it again today, that when the budget passed in May, it was before we received a resignation for a science position, which is give or take with health benefits at probably around 75, about 75 to 80,000. That was in our original budget. The budget passed, and then this person resigned. So we do have that little bit of window if we have to elevate the salary, the allocation for the salary by 25,000 or so. So I just wanted to keep you in mind. So again, based on the needs.
Can I ask a question,
Sure.
Chick? We're not going to replace that science teacher as well.
Correct.
Right? So
Yeah.
it would be ongoing that is available.
Just to be clear, we're not going to replace that science teacher because we don't need that position, correct?
Correct. According to Mrs. Marvin, she said she looked at our master schedule because we had 5 science teachers. Not every science teacher had a full schedule. So she actually had approached us and said, I think we can be good without replacing it. We still have 4 full-time science teachers. And again, Ray, it's a new frontier. And it's hard because we're all so sad about what we're faced with. But I think if we keep kids at the center and what are our current needs, what are the needs we're seeing, the trends we're seeing, and how do we restructure that meets those needs if we're going to be spending, if we have to spend the market value.
Yeah, she very much laid the groundwork for what needs to come in the future, and the bar is high.
It is.
And that's the new frontier of it all. So it actually helped us, pointed us in the right direction as to how that description of the next person coming into that position, how it should be laid out.
Right, I agree. And again, I'm indifferent as to exactly how we do it, but I think that as we build the job description, and I made revisions to the first draft, the second draft, eliminating any title so that it is all encompassing based on the needs we know moving forward. Thoughts, questions? Again, open discussion.
It would, something that I think that would be a great idea is because all I hear is a resounding how amazing Ms. Schneider was, and that's, I mean, everybody says it. I can't think, I'm looking out here, but I can't think of
Amy's
any.
saying yes.
Amy, thank you. Would she be open? Have we reached out there? Can we use her to our advantage to build the program that we want? She's available to us. I know she has a passion for Duanesburg. I know this because I spoke with her.
Right. So she had to take her daughter to the doctors today, but she was on vacation last week, and we are going to talk about transition and rebuilding and going forth probably, if not at the end of this week, then next week.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Just not to get into a long discussion, but just that would be the person I would say would hold the biggest place within my heart for this school district because she did so much, like you guys say, and using her to our advantage to build the spot that's going to be the best for us with her background. That's just my
Absolutely.
suggestion.
Completely agree. And like I said, she just got back from break, her own vacation, and we're slated to take time and talk about what does that look like. Tony, did you have something?
Yes, I do. My biggest fear is that we're top heavy and we're losing the little people. Okay, so we're not going to have a science teacher. I don't know how we do it. With sixth grade up here, I don't know how you add that many more classes to the science load and still with labs and everything else that has to be done. And if we're offering RTI type classes, which I think we're doing for science, I mean, it's great that it's wonderful, but now we have a lot of people over $100,000 in a small little district. I feel like we're sending a wrong message. I don't know. I mean, I know it's an important thing, but to just put assistant superintendent of blah blah blah, it's very difficult pill for some people to swallow.
No, I agree.
And I worry that this is what's going to fall back on us again.
I'm gonna play off of Tony with this. Where, go ahead, Francis. Go ahead.
I mean, to push back though, Danielle is an administrator. She's in the administrator unit. It is existing as an administrative position. By increasing the mandate to recognize that it would include the entire district, that does become assistant superintendent type position, similar to Mr. Rivenberg. You know, particularly if we're going to turn and throw in things like McKinney-Vento maintenance and the what is it called?
Portrait of a Graduate.
Portrait of a Graduate.
The curriculum side.
Yeah. You know, I think that is a curriculum-wide, or excuse me, a district-wide view of the position. And as far as, I don't know, you know, I mean, yeah, administrators are expensive. It's teachers are getting expensive. Everything is expensive. The number $100,000 is less important to me than the quality of the person.
Agreed. It's got to be a high quality person. It's got to be somebody who's in special ed. It doesn't, I mean, these are all very, very important things. And to replace somebody of that caliber is going to be a very difficult thing that has to be screened and vetted and everything else in an immense amount. But Danielle was working district wide. She wasn't just anywhere.
She was working district-wide, but I think with the additional work that we want this person to do, it opens them up to other needs and the possibility of working in tandem with principals.
I'm gonna play off of what you're saying, because we as a board, and I'm gonna group myself in with you because I am part of you now. We as a board should have done a better job in the beginning when it came to our budget process, realizing the specific needs of this position, what Danielle actually did. And if we were looking to make and add the increase in salary, I know that we need to look into, because we're going to be replacing somebody. But when you go into a budget process and you have the needs, that's when it needs to be budgeted for. The transparency that goes into the community when you lose an employee, but now you're going to create a new position and you're going to have an increase in pay and a change in title, the transparency level of that is not great. And, hold on a second, that we're coming just out of the budget, literally just out of the budget. So from a community standpoint, this looks horrible.
The difficulty is the community doesn't understand that this is a contracted position, and the rate that we were paying her at was contracted, and that contract doesn't expire for another year. So we could not, even though we knew she was doing more work, adjust her position going into this year's budget.
Francis, I couldn't agree with you more. We are unfortunately losing her ahead of her contract moving, right? We didn't know that was going to happen. So now we need to stay within what our budget says, right? And we do have money, and Jeff does a great job with it and being able to swing and pivot, because you have to do that well within a budget. I do understand that. However, with a change in title, with an increase in pay, we are going to look for an interim, correct? That's what we're looking for right now. So we need to specify the terms and the length of the interim and maybe in the new budget season, look at the title. We need to come up with a title, and we also need to come up with what that is going to be. Because in the interim, the person who's in the interim is not going to be getting paid that amount, or should not be getting paid that amount, because it's going to be an interim position. So, I'm sorry, I'm just 2 more seconds. If we're going to go into that, the budget process, maybe that's a part of the budget process when we start talking about it next year. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm telling you, the community is going to have there's going to be a large say in this. I know it.
Sorry. Another thing that we have to think about is retention. Staff, teacher retention, employee retention. Um, it's very fluid out there, and people tend to jump. We have to, this particular district is currently looked at as a stepping stone, and we have to
Always has.
create this is part of creating that environment where a teacher might say, I could be making 20,000, 15,000, 10,000 over here, but I'm going to stay here because of the culture. And that's the other part of all this. Understanding that there's a budget behind all this, and understanding that we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul in this situation. It's not. I don't think it's absurdly outside of the budget. And yes, I agree with you. People will be looking at the bottom line, and that's always the give and take when it comes to taxes, when it comes to everything else that we do, the expansion of the school. People are always looking at the bottom line. That's always going to be the issue. Excuse me. But as we continue to create the culture of retention and reward teachers for that, I think that in the long term, we're much better off than being considered a stepping stone school district. And that's a juggling act.
So it's my understanding that the goal. Oh, sorry.
You just totally flung your
sorry.
microphone up there.
Did I interrupt you? Oh. All right. I don't want to talk out of turn. It's my understanding that this isn't. It sounds like it's not so much about the person that was in the role. It's that you're attempting. Your recommendation is to expand the role. Is that correct? What is the underlying reason for the expansion of the role itself? Is it to take items off your plate? Because I know some of those are. I believe you're the McGinnity Bento rep right now, right?
Am I on or off? Okay. There's a few reasons I had mentioned that we have an increase of not just academic needs coming up, rolling up through. Right, if you recall, we have that special class starting, the 812. We also have increased management needs, social emotional needs. We also have, we know we're faced with the heavy lift of Portrait of a Graduate, so that curriculum side, in the science of reading to make sure it's done with fidelity throughout K-12. And then it's not necessarily taking McKinney-Vento and foster care liaison is one thing off my plate. It's a very small, minute thing off my plate. But when you look to other districts and other organizations and you look at that umbrella of student support services, sometimes it's called pupil personnel services, when you look under that umbrella, even some of our neighboring districts, same thing, same size, is that your school counselors, your related service providers like speech and psychology, your English as a new language, that's a new trend for us. 5 years ago, there was no ENL students. Now we have 7 or 8, something like that, maybe 7. Then we also have the foster care and McKinney-Vento. There's also homeschooling, but right now we have BOCES that oversees our homeschooling. That's usually under that umbrella as well. And then you have our MTSS, which goes hand in hand with the multi-tiered systems of support, which looks at that pyramid where the top percent for tier 1, 2, or 3 instruction, or tier 1, 2, or 3 social emotional support. And then you have oversight of the CSE, CPSE, the Committee on Special Education, the Committee on Preschool Education. And then you also have 504s, which is a step a step below being identified or classified as a student with a disability. So though that umbrella is in most organizations, unless you're super small, like 200 kids, they have, you have, like I mentioned, Jeff has the non-instructional side, and then you have this other side. So this umbrella, this student support service umbrella. And yes, you have the superintendent, but there has to be a fluid person, K-12, basically leading those different departments under one umbrella.
All right. So if I hear what you're saying correctly, that the driver of the expansion is two things. There's some organic growth type stuff that's going on inside the district, and then there's an unmet leadership need for those personnel within the district. How much can you quantify of all those things that you just mentioned? Could you quantify how many of them are an extraordinary need that is kind of difficult to anticipate?
Can you tell me?
Like, was
reframe
this
that?
something that we saw coming for years and years, or was it an extraordinary need that became apparent recently?
No, I think it's evolved, and I think that when I got here 2.5 years ago, and I looked at the structure, I didn't, like I said, Danielle and I had numerous conversations. The goal was at the end of this contract that they have to explore the restructuring, working in several other districts and realizing that there was no umbrella for all these services and departments, and that, say, the school counselors just reported to the building principals, or the social worker just reported to the building principal, or ENL was stretched between the two building principals, and it was disjointed. So I had said to Danielle years ago, I said, I think that to make it cohesive and clear, the organization has to have these buckets or umbrellas, and there has to be a hierarchy, and there has to be a chain of command, because right now, leadership is, other than myself, is flat. And there's no chain of command within our organization except for, paraprofessionals, teachers, principals, assistant superintendent, directors, and then me.
Okay. When it comes to the perception of those in the community, the importance of that reporting structure is probably not very appreciated. It might be helpful to understand a little bit more about those needs and what the opportunity cost is for the district if not doing something like that. My last question is, in terms of, what was I going to ask? Oh, if you weren't to do this, like, or if we were to elect not to expand this role, it sounds like there would still be leftover responsibilities that may need to be covered by another position. Is that accurate to say that? Like, is this a 1 + 1 = 3 situation? Is there a synergy going on here by consolidating it into one position and expanding it? And if we weren't to do that, would there be multiple positions and we'd be in a situation where we'd have to spend that money anyway?
So I think that, and that's a great question, Mike. So I think looking at the needs of the district, and again, coming from a lens working in other districts, that the needs is like a 1.2, 1.3 full-time position. It's not 2 full-time positions. And I also know that when we charge our building principals to pick up these responsibilities, and as you know, when you have too many things, you don't do them all well with fidelity. And making sure there's clarity about roles and responsibilities, and who is in charge of the MTSS/RTI, who's in charge of the SEL, who's in charge of leading us through Portrait of a Graduate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As a building principal, there's just not enough time in the day. And so this allows us to say, okay, we need a district level position. And if we want to say from regulation standpoint, district level is a different certification than it is building level. Now, our building principals may have that certification, that's fine, but they are in a building level certification versus the hierarchy within state ed. And then you have your district level. So it basically helps free up some tasks that the principals are trying to do, and creates that umbrella that most organizations have, and expands the job and the job responsibilities. One of the things one person can't do, a 1.3 full-time position, but we can rely on under that umbrella. So for example, this position, whatever title we come up with, I'm fine with that. That they're still in charge of overseeing CSE, CPSE, but it is very normal that the average Committee on Special Education meeting, so say it's just a requested review meeting by the parent, they want to look at programming, the school psychologist can be that chair. It doesn't have to be the director of SPED, right? So you can delegate some of those smaller responsibilities in your umbrella.
Right, thank you. Those are the answers I was looking for.
I've been waiting for everybody else, but is it okay to go ahead now? Go ahead. Okay. I guess I'm sort of echoing some of the things that have already been said, but I think what's really important for not only us to understand, but for the community to understand is that this position exists as an administrator already. So we're not creating a new administrative position. We're not simply changing a title and increasing pay. We are reorganizing that existing district position, administrative position, to include things that right now we don't have anyone to do those jobs, like the portrait of a graduate, for instance. So sure, it's great to take some things off of other people's plates. The principals are doing those things, and to take that off of a principal's plate and put it onto someone else's plate is nice for the principal. But I think to your point, Kim, trying to do everything means that nothing gets done fully. And so, and in my experience, which is, sort of school adjacent, I am regularly speaking with directors of pupil services, and then they're directing me to their special education Committee on Special Education chairperson, who's not them. That person is in that building, and that person is able to do, like the school psychologist, for instance, or maybe the school social worker is the director, the committee chair. So I think whether we add the responsibilities or not, I don't know that we're going to get a pool of applicants that just want to be the director of special education as we have it written right now, because it's not really a thing anyplace else. And so I'm not sure who would want that job, especially if we don't want this to be a stepping stone and we want someone to come and stay and see this as a promotion for them that is, expanding their career. All the things that are likely what drove Danielle to leave this position. That's sort of where I'm coming from this in my experience in working with these personnel, in my own professional career. But these folks are out there and they're doing a lot of work, and now we're adding even more things to their plate with Portrait of a Graduate and things like that. So I think it's important to understand that we're not creating a new administrator and adding more. We already have this. It's in that unit. We're going to have to pay someone to come here. I don't know what the pool is going to be like for someone that's going to be willing to work for what Danielle's salary was to just do the things that Danielle did, but also recognize Danielle did a whole lot more than what's in her job description. And she did that out of the goodness of her heart because she's a really hardworking person. So in reality, even just to replace Danielle, we have to expand the job description because Danielle already did more than what was in it. And so we have to rewrite this position regardless, in my humble opinion. And I want to draw candidates who are looking to be in a role that is a leadership role that can drive all of the things that we need to be driven here at Duanesburg. That's what I wanted to say.
Who would this person oversee specifically?
So they would oversee all special education teachers, paraprofessionals, related services like social workers, speech, OT, nurses. They would also oversee E&L staff because we have Carol. And then they would also oversee the process, the committees for 504 and for MTSS. So those are building level committees. Then I feel like I'm forgetting somebody because I know I had put it down. Hold on, I have the.
Oh, the
It's
one
in
that
the
James
email.
Lake Superlish.
Um,
I don't look at it. Right
yeah, it
before
was
I-
in the email. So I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. So within that,
Do you want me to just, special education teaching staff, I think you have everybody, special
Okay.
education paraprofessionals, E&L teaching staff, school nurses, school social workers, school counselors, school psychologists, speech therapists, occupational therapists, and physical therapists. Physical therapist
Right.
is the only one you didn't say.
Oh, right. And so that's just staff overseeing, but then the programs to oversee is district leadership team, obviously MTSS, 504, compliance with the E&L because that's not an easy task. And then, I'm sorry, go ahead. You have a question?
District, what did you say? District leadership team?
Be
Isn't
part of
that
the,
you?
no, it's not new. So part of the
No,
district leadership
you,
team,
I said. Don't
Pardon?
you oversee the district leadership?
I said they'd be a part of the district
Oh,
leadership team. And then
Yes.
obviously, obviously, so, one of the things, as Melissa just said, that Danielle did a lot of things that were not within her job description. One of the things, and this is where the curriculum piece comes in, is that, and the mandate with science of reading, in which a lot of our resources are. Our elementary teachers went through the micro-credentialing process with SUNY New Paltz. But one of the things that Danielle spearheaded and has significantly had a positive impact is the Really Great Reading Program. So she was dipping her toe into the curriculum side, even though it wasn't, she just, she realized that it was a great resource and tool to bridge the reading gap.
As far as, because she would be removed from that one group, does she negotiate, or I'm assuming it's a she, because we know we handle that. Negotiate her contract by, again, individually?
It would be terms, like similar to, again, the title, I don't want us to get hung up on the title, and I don't want the community to focus in on like it's a title thing, because it's not a title thing. It's about expanding a job description, meeting the needs of the students that we're seeing now and that are projected. And so, Mr. Rivenberg has his own separate terms, and Serena has her own separate terms, so very similar structure.
I looked it up real quick. Danielle received tenure as a sped instructor in 2022 as a sped teacher, and then was appointed as director of special education July 1st, 2023. It was a new position created for her to dip her toe into separating this position from the principals, the special education situation. Obviously, since then, over the past 3 years, the world has expanded, and I think the need has changed. So that's, I think there was always the plan for this growth. It just never got back to it, fortunately.
Well, and if I'm understanding correctly, that would have been something that she very likely negotiated in her next contract negotiations, which were upcoming next year. So I mean, obviously, we can't know exactly what that might have looked like, but I think she knew her worth.
And again, I'm going to continue to speak broadly, and this is it from me. She expanded the position, and in doing so, there were a bunch of criterions that she had adjusted for this expansion of that position. I looked at it. I got to admit, even though I'm in education, I only understood about some of it, of what her responsibility entails. Um, she created a blueprint for the next position to come. and it's broader than the one that she was asked to do. So we have to look at her as the co-author of this new position, a new frontier. As I said, I'm going to keep on saying that. And we have to accommodate the next person while weaving with the broader community of teacher, staff, principal, retention of members of this school community. And I think that this is a step to do that. I'm sorry, it's a broad responsibility, and we are asking a lot.
And you know what? You make a good point, Ray. When you read through the first draft, I did send email a second draft based on some of the feedback. Again, draft, and to point out like what Tony's saying, we hope when someone reads this, the right person will know exactly what it means, right? So the right person will know, what those acronyms mean, what the job description means, because they'll have a strong foundation in what the job is.
The description takes care of itself.
Yeah.
Because reading that, you might be a good special ed educator and supervisor or what have you at a previous district, but then reading the next, it's going to weed out the candidates that are not really apt or,
Right.
or really ready for that particular position. And Danielle, we have to thank for that. And we lost her, but again, she created a map.
Right,
And,
she did.
and
Exactly.
I would think that we would be remiss if we did not look at that incomplete, even if we have to make some adjustments, lateral adjustments here and there. No compromises, but lateral adjustments on expectations of an individual that's just coming into our. I think that's something that we all should look at as well.
I think that when you look at a job description, right, like we've all been talking here, well, you use that job description because that's what we lay out. That's what we agree to. That's what we put forth. That's your contract. Everything beyond that would be salary. And that's something that can be talked about at a different time. But when we lay out the job description and you look at it and you apply for it, and if we hire you, that means that you've agreed to it. That's the terms. That's the terms of your contract for the most part. There's a lot of other things that are built into that, but that's your contract. So whatever it is as a board that we decide and we agree upon, that's that person's contract, barring a couple other things. So that's our job, our responsibility. Kim, I know that's your responsibility, all of our responsibility, to make sure that that job title fits exactly what our needs are and what we need, so that we don't find ourselves behind the 8 ball. But again, that's all stuff that we have to discuss. So
the individual taking the position behind the 8 ball. So that, again, we might have to make some lateral adjustments in doing so. And again, this is new. This is new for all of us. And so we have to be very diligent about how we're going to roll this out, how we're going to create the contract, because it is a contract. It's, we're not bringing in a step person at this point in time. They are on the administrative team, and a person reading, and again, I'm repeating myself, sorry, reading that bullet point for bullet point for bullet point, a good person might drop out 2/3 of the way through. An excellent person might say, I think I can do that. And again, we might be just laying precedents for this. I have a child in special education in this district. It's been great.
I have one that spans the time, and it has been great. It was not. Um, Danielle has done an amazing job, and I'm going to actually correct you, Ray. She's not expanding that. She invented that position that we have, and we absolutely. I think Craig has a great point. When you meet with her next week, show her the description and be like, "Is this what you've been doing? Because if this is not what you've been doing, tell us what else you've been doing, and we should write that down in the next position, because that's vital." Yeah.
I'll say one more thing, because administrators, great. Got to pay them, of course. You know that I feel that way. I taught here for 40 years and I never made that kind of money. We got to appreciate the people we have, and that's what's such. That's where I get a little nervous. Every single time we replace somebody, we pay them this much more to fill a position. Understanding that the position has been evolved into something larger or whatever, we have to take care of our own. That's what I'm worried about. And the people that see us spending money, we have to make sure that they understand what is this all about. It has to be explained. It has to be wide open. And hopefully that we can find somebody to fill these shoes, because it's not going to be a very small task.
No. I, yeah, as you were talking, Tony, I was thinking to myself, so if this is, if we don't, find someone to do all the things that Danielle was hired to do, and then what she chose to do because it was the right thing to do for the students, which is ultimately where all of this comes down to, right? Is that everything she did was for the benefit and the support of those students. If we don't expand it and we hire someone or don't find someone to hire, then what's the solution? Like, where does that leave us? But I think I think it's an important thing to consider, is that without that, where does that leave our students? Not our budget, not our finances, not the $100 extra it cost me in my taxes. Where does that leave our students? Because at the end of the day, that's my biggest concern.
The first thing that went through my mind when I got the email about this was the influence of that position is great. Like, what what is our ability to tolerate that role being unfilled in the beginning of September? Can you describe a little bit about how we would deal with a situation like that? Because there are circumstances beyond our control here. Some are within our control and some aren't, but do we have a plan in place for tolerating that for some period of time?
So I have a few emails out and some phone calls, interestingly, to interims or males that retired from doing this exact job. One we just missed. He accepted a position as an interim principal. But there's another email out, and then another candidate from, I forget where she's from, but she can only do part-time. So I'm hoping by the end of next week I can have a meeting with them, kind of explain what our process is, that we don't want to rush. And usually in the interim world, they're okay to do it for 3 months, 6 months, how long to them, because of the waiver with New York State. Usually they step into the interim world because they get their pension and then they can be paid as well. Worst case scenario, if it's someone who's just part-time, like I said, I'm meeting with the special ed department in a few weeks to do a virtual meeting and say, hey, we may only have somebody here for 3 days a week. How can we all step up, including myself, to carry us through until we find the right candidate? The capital project and all the challenges, we probably have 2 to 3 full days a week that Jeff and I are managing it, so that's a lot. But you make it work, and I go to the team and say, all right, we're going to be, we only are going to have somebody here a few days a week. How can we all help? And it is such a phenomenal team that I can see them stepping up to say, this is what we'll do to get through.
All right. So you're saying in the short term there are some levers we can pull?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
But again, to point out, that's asking others to go well above and beyond,
right.
without any additional compensation. So yes, and I have no doubt that our special education team will absolutely step up, because the thing that I do not doubt at all is that they have students at the forefront in everything that they do. So I know that they will. That's not something that we can rely on for a long period of time, because they'll burn out, and that's not fair to them. They didn't get hired to do their job plus a little bit of this other job because we don't have anybody. So we have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting to rely on that. I was just wondering if we can keep
but
the lights on for
but even like to Kim's point, like 3 months, 6 months, every month that we carry on and we're relying on others to step above and beyond what they do already every day is a lot to ask. other thoughts or questions? So I'll try to summarize. I know that Serena took notes, so I'm guessing my summary will not be as comprehensive as Serena's. But you know, we've got very real challenges in front of us financially, right? And so some of the concerns are that that a position that is a salary that's higher than what we were already paying is going to be of concern to community members. Valid concern. Also, that the image that we have a whole bunch of administrators is a concern. And then on the sort of the side of, is this what we need to do? Is that we're looking for someone who's going to do more than what was initially put out. And this is secondary to my summary, but you know, that position was created because we had Danielle and because we knew Danielle could do that job and would, you know, to Ray's point, expand and invent what it needed to be for this district. So, you know, at the end of the day, with all of those things in mind, I just want to pull everybody's attention back to what students need and what's most important to students, because our job as trustees of this district is to ensure that every single student is cared for and supported in all the ways that they need. So from my perspective, having that in writing rather than hiring someone and hoping they do what Danielle did makes more sense. And I recognize, because these are the times that we live in, my electric bill doubled from last month to this month, that we will have to compensate that person. But I want that person to be really good, right, so that they're worth that compensation. So I think for now, the next step would be that you'll be meeting with Danielle, and maybe you can give us a third draft.
Yep, so I'll meet with Danielle. I have my Capital Region BOCES superintendent retreat tomorrow and Thursday, and then back to district, and then we have capital project stuff that we got to deal with that we get to entertain you in a few minutes about. And so based on the schedule, today was probably the only day I'll make sure I schedule it for Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to walk her through how she's expanded and create this blueprint for the job that she does, the needs. There's some other housekeeping things I want to talk to her about. So like CPI, so she's the lead trainer with 2 other staff members to train staff for CPI, it is the nonverbal de-escalation. So the goal was to train everyone in the district on how to use nonverbal cues to de-escalate a child in crisis. Thank you for that. And then her and I have some other things that we want to unpack, including I want to know where she's at in the continuum of the really great reading program that we've seen make a difference, especially with our identified students. So I have a whole grocery list, and then we'll walk through the job description, and if there's anything that she's doing that I'm not aware of, we can make sure that it's included. And then my goal is to give the third draft to you guys. As you know, when I got here, every new position, except for teachers, because that's pretty specific, gets a job description. So when Christy came on board, I wrote a job description for her. When we had a new HR deputy treasurer, there was a job description. So I love job descriptions. So once we finalize and we're in agreement that it looks like a solid job description, then we can talk about, probably now will be our August meeting, about how we want to title it. I do want to run a very aggressive campaign for candidates. I want to not just do OLAS, I want to make sure it's on SANES, which is the administrative statewide representation, like NYSU, but for administrators. I want to make sure that we get it out to potential candidates, and I'd like to run it for at least a month, because sometimes people aren't looking, right? Or they don't have time because administrators are busy. Right, and it's beginning of the year, they're getting ready. So if we run it for a month, and then similar to the model and the structure we did with hiring the elementary principal, having the candidates apply, having board members and myself vet the candidates, meet with the candidates, and then narrow it down to 6 applicants, and then run through the different teams that we did, and then have open discussion about who can do the job and who's going to be the best fit for the district.
So you'll keep us updated in the weekly
will.
updates,
I
and
really-
then we'll come back to the table again in August.
Yeah, my hope is that after our August meeting, we're all on the same page, and then the day, August 6th, it can go out as a posting.
Any other final comments before we move to the next item? Hold on to your hats. Capital project update. Okay.
Ready?
Come on, you're making us look bad. Microphone's all over the place.
Hello?
Okay, the second reason for tonight's meeting, special meeting, is Jeff and I had updated the board Thursday, when was it, July 7th or whatever it was, about on June 29th, we were made aware of a safety concern. And part of it was, as Titan was demolishing the roof above the 3rd floor in this building, they exposed some structural elements that are in very poor condition. And I know I have a lot of pictures for everybody to see, but I hate this thing. So I included this picture because the reason why we didn't know that the parapets were failing was because, is it a rubber roof? It's like a rubber.
It's like a rubbery coating, but then there's also foam, and then there was actually stones on top. So the way they used to do roofing, they put rocks.
Right, they put rocks. So when they started pulling it back is when they discovered the disrepair. And it was covering up the parapet, so you couldn't tell that it was in disrepair. So some contractor uncovered the deterioration, and then in the parapet during the demo, revealing conditions not previously visible. The masonry is unstable, and if you know, I've learned a lot about parapets. It's almost like a faux facade, like a terracotta facade. And if you look at the original building where you see Delancey High School, it's kind of that really pretty edging that's like steps up and steps down. There's those oval concrete things that are kind of leaning forward. So they're not a solid structure, but the rubber roofing kind of covered it up. And then it's unstable. So 3 courses of brick and block are loose, shifting, and structurally, and create an immediate hazard. And we say that because another district just last week or earlier this week had a ton of cement bricks or whatever fall right in front of their front door. Luckily, no one was standing there. So you're going to see here, the picture on your left is what the rubber roofing looked like before they started demoing it. And then that's what it looks like when they got done demoing it. Can you see where that's it, like a chimney, right? Or you can see the deterioration. And then if you look on the upper right, for lack of words, it looks like the brick was rotting. Not that brick rots or terracotta rots, but between the flooring and the moisture and it not being sealed, it has compromised the masonry work. So again, another picture of where they've pulled off. You can kind of see the foam and where it has the actual ceiling in the 3rd floor had a leak. That was a hole. And then you can see on the left where you can it has deteriorated where it doesn't even look like it's attached. So this is the area that's compromised, right? So we're looking at these two sides. It's on your right, the drawings, or where the parapet is deteriorating. And again, what they did is, until we can move forward, is they put more rubber over it with clamps to keep it from falling. Keep water out of it as well. All right, so this is why the board needs to do a resolution for an emergency project. Safety confirmation. The architect and the engineers have confirmed that the parapet's condition constitutes a safety concern requiring prompt corrective action. There's a risk of collapse. The instability presents a risk of failure, especially ongoing with a roof demo. We need immediate stabilization for removal. The parapet cannot remain in its current state. It must be secured. And then move to a full removal, an installation of coping metal, option to quickly eliminate. We have the photos that are documenting it, and immediate direction required. Conditions necessitate rapid decision making, hence why we've asked the board to come together tonight to resolve an emergency project. This is Jeff.
Okay, so this total budget comes to $780,000. That's made up of $510,000 in construction and then $270,000 in incidental. So in case any of you are wondering on what the incidental portion of the budget is, that basically covers the construction manager, the architect, any fiscal responsibilities, printing, insurance costs, any consultants that we have to get. This includes also like if there's any additional testing that has to occur. So if more things are found that need to be tested for asbestos or something like that, or lead or whatever, and we have to send things out, or mold, those things also fall under that incidental portion of the budget. And we also that legal is also as part of that as well. So there's really two sides to the construction budget. It's for a capital project budget, you got the construction side where it's all the work and all the things that, all the materials and all the labor that goes into the project. And then the other portion is basically everything else. And then how we're going to fund this is that just recently we had established that repair reserve fund. So thankfully it's there, and now it would become a part of the funding for this project. In order to utilize that within 2 years, we do have to fund that back in 2 years. Though it's $300,000. And then to balance out the difference, we'd be looking at $480,000 of undesignated fund balance. And if you recall, last year we finished our budget year with a 6% instead of a 4%. This $480,000 actually represents about 2% in fund balance. So so mathematically, it works out for the most part, yes.
We laugh too because Jeff is such a rule follower, and I'm like, I know every district that goes above 4% gets their hand slapped. If they have 6% or 16%, you get your hand slapped. And I said, just stick with me. Let's inch it up to 6%. Make me happy. And this is why, right? It worked out perfectly. It was, my crystal ball and projecting to the future. And this is why we have reserve funds. We've talked about this even in my time, that we have reserve funds, restricted and unrestricted. These are our rainy day money, right? So guess what? Rainy day is here. But I'm grateful for Jeff because he's been working with our fiscal advisors. He has a call into state ed today, state aid. Because one of the things we talked about is this is the maximum amount, the worst case scenario. Because as you know, when we go open up those walls where the parapets are attached to, or they start removing brick, we could find black mold. You saw the hole in the floor of the roof, right? If it's done that much damage to brick and mortar, we're not sure what we're going to find when they take it apart. And looking at the scope of the work, like they need a boom in here, they need the super lift in here. I mean, it is quite extensive just for that facade on the beginning of the building.
So building aid will still be applied for this project. However, it will not cover the $300,000 portion. So whatever's above that, the $480,000, we would receive aid for those expenditures based on our building aid ratio.
Which is usually like 70.
79.8%. Yep. So how the state decides and determines how we will get that back leaves us yet to their response. So we're waiting on their response. They could give it back in 1 year, or they can spread it out over 15 years. It's entirely it's based entirely on how their project manager at State Ed views this project, and right. So so as long as they look at it as structural, we will get it back in 1 year. Although I did speak to our fiscal advisors the other day, and they said that sometimes State Ed is coming back and saying we're rewarding this at 15 years instead. So more on that, I guess, to come, because then we'll be looking at what our building aid looks like next year during budget.
Jeff,
So
can I ask a question before
Sure.
we move on from here? So if I'm understanding you correctly, Jeff, this wipes out our repair reserve. And we have 2 years to refill it. And this is our maximum anyway, yes?
Yes, that's
300,000.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then thankfully, we have our undesignated fund balance. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but what happens if in March the boiler explodes? Where is our safety net then?
Great question. The 4% that's still remaining. Yeah.
Okay. Hence the reason we want to keep that. Right. That's our savings account, basically.
right.
To help us. Okay.
The question I had today, and so this is the maximum amount, and I said, so what if it doesn't, because we do have the incidental budget. What if we have $100,000 left over? And can we put it back into our unrestricted or repair reserve? We're pretty confident it's a yes. Unlike if this was a voter-approved capital project with a ban and we're borrowing money, if there's leftover money, it usually goes to debt reserve. We want to, if we have, and Jeff can attest to, I am the coupon clipping queen. I will make it my mission to make sure that we have $100,000 left over. The only thing I would have to say is if that money does come available, there are pieces, when you guys were looking at the wall a few weeks ago, it's not an emergency project where the lintels are and the brick is bulging. It's not an emergency project. It's not imminent danger. But if we do have $100,000 left over, and I do my coupon clipping, then we could possibly look at to do that. Other than that, that's probably going to be moved into phase 3. And then there was something else about the roof, if there was money left over.
Oh, there's always something more about the roof.
Yeah, I know.
That's all we do is roofs. How quickly can this get fixed? Because we have kids coming in 6 weeks.
Okay, so hold on one second. So I'll address that, Melissa, because I have it in a slide. So this is just the scope of the work. And remove it and salvage the precast concrete, those oval medallions, and for reinstallation. So take them down very carefully. They're going to actually be placed off-site and taken care of. Same thing with the precast marquee that says Delanson High School. Taken down with care, put away in a place that they're safe, cleaned up, and reinstalled. Remove the existing roofing and edge flashings to access the brick and limestone. They're going to install, and this comes from the engineers, the wood stud wall parapets. The top of the parapet coping, so that's that, right? So install the new terracotta and brick repointing, shoring of the existing brick above the windows, remove the deteriorated lintel plates on that top level, and install new galvanized lintels, and install new brick and brick washing after all installation, and then put our beautiful things back up again. All right, so what makes an emergency resolution? And this is where it goes to state ed, where we say this is an imminent danger to people and or further damage. We know water's coming in. Did you see the hole? Right? We know that it's being held up by rubber tarps and clamps right now. So the board has to declare an emergency project. Then the state takes it, and then we go from there. And then by choosing not to do a 30-day public hearing, which we are not recommending, that's where Jeff had mentioned we replace the repair reserves in 2 years. We talked about temporary security measures right now. Here's the biggest challenge: masons. Finding a mason. They are so book solid. So working through, is it union, is it non-union, so on and so forth. We will work through that, but in the meantime, they're going to put actual fencing around that area, that like you see at the elementary school. They have the rubber roofing with the clamps holding it on, and then as soon as we can get a mason to get here, then the work will start right away. We were in a meeting for hours today, about 2.5 hours. That was just today. And I've learned a lot in the last few, I keep learning a lot with these capital projects. So I know that Murnane has a mason, but they're all busy. They're all busy. So we can work through like how we go about this, if we go out for a mini bid or as an, well, actually, with an emergency project. I forgot about this. I wrote this down. With an emergency project and that you approve and that we submit to SED, we are exempt from the competitive bidding process. So we don't have to do that whole month long, come look, wait a month, open bids, so on and so forth. You are exempt from it. Now, does that mean we're just going to take anybody who'll do the work? No, but it allows us to vet someone who can do the work. And Jeff and a few others were talking about they know a few people in the industry to reach out to. So it doesn't tie us up with a competitive bidding process.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
Sorry. I was just looking at the next steps. Just moving back, maybe I missed something, but just want clarity. In terms of the hole on slide number 1, 2, 3, is that a full removal, or is that a patch job? Are we just patching that, or are we taking all of that substrate out and putting down a whole new substrate?
Areas like, so this photo is to show you an example of
on
where,
this one.
yeah, I know, yep. So this is where, water was clearly either pooling up or coming into the building, which caused the damage on the parapet. The base of the roof has been replaced. Like the roofing company actually came in and put new boards over top and actually replaced the ceiling like it should be. So anything that was rotted has been replaced on the roof level. It's the parapet now that we have to address.
Okay, so so we didn't just, is it a complete tear out? I'm missing something.
Yeah,
is that
so
a complete tear out, or did we just put something over that substrate?
They ripped out boards like that were busted up, and then they replaced them with, I don't know if you have any other pictures of that, but there was a picture on one of our daily logs that showed that they had replaced some wood like in a similar situation like that. And I don't know if it was exactly that same location, but that's what they went through. And yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so I'm assuming, my follow-up question is, I'm assuming that The structural engineers checked out what was left behind
Yeah, we've had
and for leakage and,
structural engineers been here a few times in the
Sure.
past few days, yeah, or a couple weeks, yes.
Because, 100-year roof, we
Yes.
want it to last another 100 years.
Yes, I'm just glad that none of us were up there walking around on the roof to check it out, that,
Yeah.
found that spot.
All right, thank you.
I don't know what they were doing in the spring, hanging in front of the building and making a lot of noise or whatever that was. I don't know what it was.
What part of
I'm
the
just-
building?
The front of the building, the
Okay.
front of the old part. What were they doing, and was it discovered then? I mean, were they cleaning the bricks, or were they?
So there was repointing of a lot of the bricks. So you'll notice, like by the ADA ramp, they were repointing them because they were starting. They needed a little love. So maybe is that what you're talking about? They were
Yeah, but was that when it was discovered, or?
no.
When they peeled the roof back, that's when they discovered this problem. They couldn't see it from the front. It was underneath and in the back in June 29th. So
Could you just turn your mic on for us, Craig? Yeah.
I'm not good at this. If you, Tony, to your point, like you're saying, but even if you look at the front, I am on slide number 4. If you look at the front looks fine. There might be some minor pointing that would need to be done on the front side there. The only thing that would be questioned would be the foam that's pushing the limestone away from the wall. But the brick itself from the front side on a parapet, because it's a freestanding wall and it has no load-bearing capacity, it looks fine. So I understand the point of the rubber roof meeting up to the top part, or maybe the top cap where it would have been hidden behind that. It makes sense why from the front side, if you're just doing a quick overview of the front, just from what I'm seeing here, kind of makes sense on, well, the pointing looks fine, so you're assuming the back side of it's going to be fine too.
I do
right,
though.
because that's where the foam was all. I mean, that on that one picture, and I think it was the first picture we saw, was where the foam was actually slanted up and pushed up against the parapet.
I do though sort of question the original estimate by the architect on a 100-year-old roof that it wouldn't have these types of problems. I mean, I don't put that blame on anyone in this room, but it is sort of, there are enough 100-year-old school buildings around that have layered roofs on top that this should have been expected by the experts.
Right. So interestingly, and I don't agree with you because I've been asking that question a lot. If you look at the picture at the left, that's before they pulled up the rubber roof. It looks pretty good. Like my first look, I'm like, that looks like it's intact. That looks like it's not compromised. And so I don't know, when did that go down? 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Something like, it's out of warranty. It's at least 20 years. So visually, right? So the picture on the left is before they started digging it up. So whatever the condition was 20 years ago.
Well, that's the thing, is we've had enough of these projects now
Right,
where because the lowest bidder came in last,
right,
they just covered up what was there.
probably.
So the expectation should always be it's going to be the worst situation when you rip open these things.
Right.
That's right. You don't assume they learned it the first year.
Right.
Mhm. And we are bound by the process of lowest bid. And we're lucky with Titan and Farrell have been very good to work with. They didn't just try and cover this up. They're doing the right thing by us. And when they did the building condition survey, you didn't want to compromise this rubber roof and pull it up to see, like in your house, like, oh, what's underneath my carpet? Is it hardwood floor? You don't want to disturb the roof, because when they did the building condition survey 4 years ago, you're compromising it. So clearly something prior 20 years ago when this roof was put down, it was not in great condition.
To Francis's point, like what you're looking at here is that even if you look at the front medallions and everything else, so you can tell that there's multiple layers of decking that are involved in this, because if you look at the next picture over where the top cap is, there's about a 2.5-foot section that is down from where that original rubber roofing, and I think that goes to Francis and Tony, I think everybody else that sits up here, is any architect that looked at that would say, man, there's probably like 4 layers of decking on this.
Well, most are buried
Exactly.
inside.
So that I totally agree. I totally understand. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think the takeaway from that is us as a board, when those architects come in the future, quoting projects like this or doing those building condition surveys, like, we can be a sanity check when we read that report to be like, hey, did you consider that? That would be something I think we would all push back on in the future.
Mhm.
Optimistic assumptions like that.
I have two more questions. One was, how will this affect the classrooms on the third floor?
So depending on how fast we get a mason, it'll be tight for third floor classrooms for opening day. They're making Henry's. I asked him, what's today? Wednesday. I asked him on Monday. He goes, I'm really hoping. So if we can get a mason, well, here's the thing. It shouldn't affect if say everything is done by opening day for the third floor, and we can have kids up there. I know you're saying no, but well, Henry's. We're definitely gonna have the second floor, but Henry just said, "I'm hoping." He told me, he goes, it'll be tight. Those were his exact words to me. I know. Well, I'm dollar in a dream, dollar in a dream. Even if when the third floor gets done, we can occupy those spaces while they are fixing the parapets because it's outside versus inside.
Okay. How long will it take to complete everything?
I asked that question today, and they said it depends if the masons that they contract with, if they have 2 or if they have 8. Depends on how big the team is. I did ask that question today too, because I figured you would ask.
This might be getting you back to your slideshow. They can't do the roof until this is fixed, right? So are we looking at another year possibly till we can get roofers again?
No.
Just because of the schedules and all, because we got stopped by winter last year, and
No, I mean, right. As soon as we get this done, then they can finish up the roof. Hey, anybody know any good masons? That's why we need to emerge. Anybody know any masons?
So it sounds to me like that, yeah, obviously that's why we called this meeting, because without this resolution, none of this can begin.
Correct.
So we're tasked with deciding that this is in fact an emergency, and we're going to pass it so that you can start immediately with the rest. Yes.
Correct.
just because I'm thinking about this now, they've temporarily weatherproofed the building, right? They've tarped it or put rubber down or whatever?
Yeah, there's rubber up on the top there.
Right.
Yes.
And as far as the emergency issue, we get one trip to the well on this, right? Like, if we don't scope it properly, we're capped at that. How confident are we that we have the full scope of demons that we could get into up there? The reason why I ask that is because when we went out and looked at it, we saw compromised lintels in that wall there. Now, we didn't know what we were looking at that point of what we were looking at, but are we confident that we have the full scope of what's going on here?
Are you talking about like above on the ground level, the lentils?
Yes.
So there was not just, I think there was a couple sorry. I completely agree, and we had a discussion about this today. And I said, what is urgent? What constitutes an emergency project? And Jeff Honeywell was on the call with us, and he was in agreement. The first floor windows with the lentils do not constitute an emergency.
Okay.
And when Jeff Honeywell tells us something, we say, okay.
Yeah.
So
this is not my field of expertise. I don't know.
Right,
I was just asking because
yeah, he doesn't feel it constitutes an emergency, because he asked that question because they broke it down. To get those replaced, we're going to move them into phase 3. It was around 300,000, right? Those lentils is about, and repointing those bricks is 300,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
It sounds like, if I'm not mistaken, just that this is something that needs to get done now. That we are in a very serious timeline with limited abilities and people, and just judging by what I have, like masonry wise, and what I know, it's going to come down to the bidding process. It's going to come down to whether it is union or is not union. That's going to determine how fast this moves.
Right,
And the
and
project, and how
because
many
it's an
people
emergency project, we
don't
can,
have to follow the bidding process.
bidding
which
process,
is,
yeah.
We're lucky with that
Yes.
sense. So yeah, I can tell you that union, non-union is going to make a little bit of a timeline factor, but
We
sounds like
actually,
that.
they told us today that if we don't, not being beholden to the competitive bidding, that non-union might be cheaper. Right. Yeah. No, no, no.
I don't know if I want to turn my microphone off for that one,
Yep.
but yes, it will be. It will 100% be faster.
Okay.
All right. So I think at this point we're ready to move. So the next item on the agenda is, of course, that resolution. It is extraordinarily long. I can read it, but I'm not exactly sure if I don't read the whole thing how to propose it. You want me to just read it? The whole shebang? It's so long. The top part. Okay. I'll figure it out. All right. All right. So our next item then is to approve the SEQRA resolution for emergency project of the high school roof. Whereas the Duanesburg Central School District recently discovered that there are significant issues with the Duanesburg High School roof parapet in certain areas, causing leaks and disintegration in the masonry, which constitute an imminent danger of masonry and other roof parapet components falling to areas below the roof used by staff, students, and visitors. Thus, we are resolving that the Board of Education determines that immediate repair is needed, and that we are approving a resolution for an emergency project. May I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Francis. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Craig. Any more comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. That is all we had for our open session.